실효조준시는 거의 빨아야 통보구나.
몇 이상도.
비싸다.
Khenchen Rinpoche Tashitele. Tasidele Rinpoche, Tasidele.
Sitting la. We now going to starting. Jagar Ketu Sharan Yana Guna Bada Nama Tut Peketa Pari He Yondin Zambo He Save Teba Yom Den Den Jambara Yang Lo Kangalo Den Dendaranya Daranam Darabzave Khenchen Dungun Jevjen Zayzaranye Jethonga Lewham Khanda Zimbe Dunrara Mare Mandam Dungharaje Khalam Bajan Darde Yanla Roje Yandyan Zong Rodara Jelo Nyamo Nyelong Leje Jalo Rundeje Mare Manzaran Dongharanyanga Jenye Jenzera Denham Dinil Dojan Sobjan Tarza Yondin Lezo Jersen Tevenga Jeta Jetan Jenye Jen Dale Manzaran Jambe Yang Yande Om Narabadana 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 de Tenje Yonglo Lo Baya Lo Lembo Ben Hawan Zan De Song Gan Zen La Waran De Baham Jung Ze De Waran De Na Ghambo Jang Yang Chen Yen Hen Khe Me Ba Tong Wa Ra Yo Sa Yen Ben Je So Yen Me Do Yende Jembande Sanje Yende Meide Pravaye Rogo Nanda Yende Jevara Yo Jam Gorana Manda Punza Mahanga Samanda Sambaran Samaya Yere sem je nam je sam ban tang lo ye se ra je da qi chung de mong de ba ye qi jian ho long on de so
Sume lama dhambi shaaji biyame dhuru dhima me bala go, iro dhodo dho kusu kiba jime shang tsamji chazun chiyo, dazi sanyi zanyi juhi nyi lan. Chiwa dho tsira tongche dho tu tsiwa jime go ne jesun zimban ziya dho, so kongbi chado dhagi ma go kasan chume dho da jaya tsira zaya, sanju tsawe zho ku me gu dhe ziya, tu yin dhamma ku ne jide. Jiti sonje kong jabe thongwa pema kabe shabe tere dhalu ya so, jo, jesun beme dhongwa la, jabe no chorong jirin zidro. Sazo beji de so ma be be man ju le da le be so jong ji 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 ce个是问这这个然后是如果这么没是be lu这个的你都就个一些这把没人去个样子吧我就把这be嘛就个你给为做个真你如果个把这be叫里做这种个这话这也没个么说的做过吧用这哪个把没给了做控制这个人间就没个也都工作个也是你们的这边弄就把弄些软件这边等到就现在跟进入了这没有这种的。可上弄件那个弄就把你们里面小姐等到就一段把进度下来，我们说宝贝等就做，弄到春节的人我就没完全没有到就去，看不到这个老巴多。到几点就没法接做老巴多，我知道别，我就他妈弄这等就去。现在送这工作量了，有个在送这个那边个3月他们出了4万的，到送周围路那去了，就是看到就是那个真的的，得是他妈就把刚是他，但是特别就是前面的上班都把他那些去那一个那个状态上面，跟他说话跟他这样子，他这个的确状推就是这。这个就是全部这个的东岸都有路有种东岸就能把就对吧？都是这么个，然后个对吧？这单种些什么的，马里面做完的东西对吧？对吧？都是，给不了做没些钱，些就没做。们的东岸没得钱都东岸就没给不了，然后就我光修这个现在是搞到这个马里面做完的东西，后面的他土把的嘛，这么就直接一大一笔。你同志军人东汉军人那的对吧？然后是吧？做不上去，公布任务就等于他原来没做不上去，军队的公布的各把小第一期都你特别明啊，出去鸟什么的，他就是那个东西的。如果就是嘛的吧，两个的公布了，就你们送把家就从山可能杀他的，去前面做那多，多几东西明啊都是几个地方就那把出了杀他的三把手。
The great master Shantideva said that even though sentient beings want to abandon their suffering, they go headlong after the causes of suffering. Even though they wish happiness, they destroy their happiness just like destroying their enemies due to their ignorance. So this is the state of mother-like sentient beings of the 6 realms of samsara. These sentient beings have been very kind to us because in the past, from the beginningless time, they have been related to us in one way or the other. So in order to repay their kindness, it's important to know their condition, the condition of being contradictory in their action and in their intention. Their intention and their action totally contradict each other. So therefore, in order to make sure that they are delivered from suffering and its causes of suffering, it's important to generate compassion. And just developing compassion is not enough. And therefore, it's important to, out of compassion, develop bodhicitta, the mind of that aspires to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, which is the vast intention of the Mahayana teachings. So with this motivation, listen to the teaching, and the attitude of listening to the teaching should be in accordance to the sutras, tantras, and the pith instructions. So yung dambe tato kondi shusi ni kazu baba nyone tsu tele ta kondi shuba jindu toma tong mataba jimba tong dungha ba jimba tong dame ba jimba de nova yigo ne baba yoba le maa chiwa kondi shusi ni ta kazong to te kazu baba kazong kari sunga sanam the tunchi got the don't go me casavale Pademe Bateta sono tovali Zen Kobazo no ni las what Temeji, not to Jen Coca zone to the San Jimaji Sheni wrong the Sheba Jibotera, con Jun Chiniso, Joey, because the San Toncheni, Lois Zemaniban, Tonchiba Shona, Chirimasoban. As on the Ton, they had a shaded in the lures at the Pascal Shibasi. That any yon not doji, that just not do it, Tonchi the Meso Javana Yon could make sure that yon San Kuru Noji Toji Kuru Melabiban. If you say that Tenny, Tempoke Yomar, you know not to Shagri. You not to Juana, not to Cesar Lomana. You not to Juatan as you drank the near John, so no Tokosa last one. David and the Sheba, Mount Belangundu, Tata Yola Yuba last one, not just John. They don't get Joanna, Jetonje, that Sarah Toman Quad translated other. Dream about it, don't have you conversation time about the Chisha, this one of them. They're good by your mothers. Don't have you shall I do the Shibikoni. Soji Yila Sheba, I told you just a corner Shumata, no by Jig on the Shiva them. Soji Yila Sheba and Della San Jury Juba Shaw, San Jurgin, and then Jury Juba Shaw, so they don't let them watching. Shaw no. You know, Yila Shebi come Shivana. The Conal Havamaju, good my Yoma is one or Jim. Chishina, Shadow Mibias, about 10 San Jim Guvachini. Maybe says, nearby shoot trouble, so many to Chivas, Mr. Tomugashani. Come to Stanley, Chiva dance. Loyamba Tombi, Tonson song, Kong Sonju turn on, Mongo Shujuji, Loyado. Kovachuna, turn chasing, turn chimbon to be Jubaji North. That they're good chimbo true with the motion that come turn everybody. They go on do. Then Toba Chomde and Dejim. Tibazo Nomagan, Dode, the engine Yoma Johnny, sand to be top, Gondry, Mombo Suma Tonje the can, didn't he? KB John, the Steva Choi, Lobo Noji John, she came at it. Then the other Vigitella, Pumotella, Pumogavatella, Toma Imbato, Madava Yibato, Dunghava Yiba, Dami by Yibate, Courageote,
所以那一落差地方意思的，开幕水中多他了，突然起完，得了那个广播上里头，日本啊吧，日线这边，但这个刚来了，车也没过吧，对不着了，他我刚才这边，但日本毛不起上了到过，但是没过吧，日本啊吧了，没对吧，但是用那个光从那。那的去过去内陆，去过去那段空的去吧，就把一米但地段的呢，搞是呢用的恐怕些就搞起嘛，得了呢，西边没做，光不一做了去，光那嘛些空的些，马光些就你说着，这些这种那当就是，当地他都。对不对？你娘来讲的，가르쳐 줘도 시바들 pendant jour momboji jon kabunga se no yondra sama no tra kabunga teso sawa lo de sim pache mero nye sunjuro gam chene meze ro lawa dan so ba jade oda sheshe chene kanana pa tonje she de reda te gamba chong je nyang de kombo de zhe kale ka wei de但是西边没做，这把做起码西边没做了，光你西把大部，西光考了嘛，大部工你然后就出去的，你们不是他的了，光把做，光把搞起意思，西把做，光把你不是光把做起是吧？这光你出去就光出来呢，西没过吧？对内陆当然多把西把那空的出下头为西头去，变成讲个没法什么叫让当。这个就是你们那边大部，都还就是马里边都同志，然后跟切东西这样的都，我到看的些，我到马光嘛看的些，对不对？那时候，喜欢那时候去，就是那时候呢，没老家的俺妈那把是拿的老的，可能那时候俺妈那两个人，阿把上两个人的，人家也考了，当然送了到那个老家去吧，可以买了，我到电脑去呢，我到。Detta kondi gomba de shira kachi mo yisna de judu time nyomni code.
So the teaching that we are receiving is the text upon the text called the Wheel of Analytical Meditation that thoroughly purifies mental activity, and which is composed by the great master Mipham Rinpoche. This text actually consists of three main sections: the virtuous beginning, middle, and conclusion. So in the virtuous middle, which is actually the main body of the text, consists of three subsections, and they are how to meditate, the measure of progress, and the significance of practice. So we have finished the how to meditate section in the main text, and then practically how to put the meditation, this particular meditation into practice, like beginning from taking refuge, preparing for the actual meditation, and then taking refuge, giving rise to bodhicitta, and being in solitude and so forth, all the preparations, and also practically how to kind of start with the meditation. And in this regard, Mipham Rinpoche composed a supplementary text, which actually help us to know what is the practical aspect of this particular practice, particular analytical meditation. So we were reading that supplementary text, and the meditation aspect consists of the four main sections or four main aspects, and then they are to analyze the aggregates, which are the 5 aggregates, which are considered to be the main object or main support of the selfish grasping. So how do we generate selfish grasping? Is that particular selfish grasping, the mind itself, the thought itself is focused, or its main object is the 5 aggregates. And when we fail to understand the nature of the 5 aggregates, then what happens is because of that mistaken attitude, mistaken way of, or misconception of the 5 aggregates leads to the development of self-grasping, generation of self-grasping. And in order to apply the antidote to the selfish grasping, it's very important to know what is the nature of the 5 aggregates. And in order to do that, Miphan Rinpoche points out the 4 main important points are related to the 5 aggregates, and they are how the 5 aggregates are a multiplicity, how they are not single, but multiple, and how they are impermanent, and then they are not permanent, and how they are suffering in nature and not blissful in nature, and how they are devoid of self, and devoid of self and not with self. So these 4 kind of meditative aspect, 4 aspects, how do we practice them? And that for that, the supplementary text the Miphan Rinpoche has composed, and we finished reading the major part of the text, and we come to the dedication aspect. And after this, after the meditation, so in the text, it's mentioned that should you grow mentally tired or fatigued, allow yourself simply to relax without contemplating anything at all. If thoughts stir, think to yourself, what is the point of trivial preoccupations? I shall steer any movement of mind towards this most appropriate form of mental activity. Now here, what Miphan Rinpoche points out is that when you continue to investigate, when you do this wheel of analytical meditation. Wheel of analytical meditation means like continuously analyzing the aggregates and trying to understand the multiplicity, the impermanence, the suffering, and devoid of self nature. So when you do it like continuously, then a time will come when you will be mentally tired and fatigued, and at that time relax without contemplating anything at all. Now, once you are rested, well rested, then when again conceptual thought arises, especially thoughts which are related to samsaric preoccupations, samsaric bliss and samsaric pleasure, anything that is related to the 8 levels, 8 types of consciousness, anything, the habitual thoughts, thought patterns that arises out of these 8 consciousness, and our main concern, especially the worldly concern of how to take care of our friends and near and dear ones, how to settle score with our enemies, with our adversaries. So our thoughts are most kind of like when these worldly thoughts stir in our mind, when these thoughts arise in our minds. So, and then sometimes our thoughts would wander in the past, what happened in the past, and whether it's good or bad, whatever it is, you know, our thoughts chases the past. And then sometimes what our thoughts would do is like it will invite the future, that what will happen in the future, and you have plans, objectives, and so on and so forth. So no matter what kind of thoughts that is related to worldly preoccupation, worldly concerns, something that is not kind of like in terms, or something that the thought that is not in kind of in conducive, that are not conducive to these 4 levels of analytical meditation. So when that kind of thought arises, then at that time, think to yourself, what is the point of these trivial or preoccupations? I shall steer any movement of mind towards this most appropriate form of mental activity. So you never let, one never lets like worldly thoughts of worldly preoccupations actually enter into your mind, but direct all of our thoughts and effort into the most appropriate form of mental activity, which talks about thinking on multiplicity of the aggregates, the impermanence nature of aggregates, the suffering nature, and the being devoid of self. By doing so repeatedly, you will arrive at a point where deliberate focus effortlessly induces an intensely powerful conviction. Intensely powerful conviction. So just as when there is a deliberate focus, when you do this repeatedly, when you do this analysis deliberately and again and again repeatedly, and then just as Shantideva said that there's nothing which won't be accomplished through habituation. There's nothing which you can't accomplish through practice. So therefore, what happens is there will come a point when these 4 levels of analytical meditation comes naturally, effortlessly into our minds, and then that kind of give rise to intensely powerful conviction, and allowing the mind to settle during breaks between sessions causes the points of the contemplation to course spontaneously through your mind, bringing great benefit. So therefore, like once our meditation becomes effortless, especially this analytical meditation becomes effortless, and then this will actually bring about a great benefit. These stages of meditation based on the sutras are easy for anyone to understand, irrespective of their level of intelligence. They bring vast benefit without the need for exhaustive reasoning, and making it possible once the practice has become familiar to realize the key to all the dharmas. Now here Mifan Rinpoche points out that normally in the monastic education, religious education, philosophical education system, like in the Sarma tradition, the new translation school system, there is this talk about the 5 major treatises, 5 major texts in Buddhist philosophy to be studied. So what normally is being done is first kind of like one memorize all the root texts of these 5 treatises, then receives teaching upon explanation upon those root texts. Then there's a lot of debate that happens in order to understand the crucial points there. And then there's memorization involved, like years and years, like many years kind of are put into the study of these major texts. And what happens is, what Mifan Rinpoche points out is that even though this is being done, if you compare this text, study of this particular small text, this is something which can be understood by both, not only just scholars, but also those who are not well learned, those who are not learned, even for them, this text is kind of like easy to understand. And by studying this text, you don't really need to go through like exhaustive reasoning. Especially exhaustive reasoning refers here to when we study the Madhyamika text, especially like analyzing the ultimate nature of phenomena, ultimate nature of individual, so forth. There's a lot of investigation involved, complex, and sometimes for those who are not learning, very confusing. And like the four or the five logical arguments of the middle way. So of course, like there's a lot of effort being kind of time being spent in order to like in certain tradition, like the entire life is being kind of put into the study, memorization, reading commentaries, debating, with the use of like physical clapping of hands and so forth. However, like for those who do not have this luxury, it is not that they also can't share, they also can't have their share of the understanding of the Dharma, especially in terms of the most important aspects of what is Dharma, what is the true nature of phenomena and individual. So like this particular text, studying this particular text will help us help us kind of like to really understand the essential meaning of the text without the need to really go through all those rigorous and exhaustive reasoning process. So therefore, they bring vast benefit without the need for exhaustive reasoning and make it possible once the practice has become familiar to realize the key to all the dharmas. So without exhaustive reasoning, one will be able to know the essential of the practice of all the dharmas, which is actually the key. So in this regard, there's one quote here: teaching is not paramount, meditation is. When meditation don't teach, but learn deeply, to teach without meditation is to be like a parrot. Practice, therefore, this analytical meditation. Now, the meaning of this particular stanza is that there are two aspects. Like here, instead of teaching, we can understand something like studying, for example. So when you study for many, many years, but if you don't practice, sit down to meditate, actually, the essence of what you have studied, then, it won't help. And therefore, like while meditating, when you actually sit down and go through these steps of meditation mentioned here, then what happens is like you really learn the essential or the profound meaning of the ultimate reality of the phenomena, as well as ultimate reality of individual. So when you study and you become well-versed, even to teach others, but if you don't meditate, then it is just like the parrot. A parrot can recite like what is being taught, without really understanding it. It can recite the mantras like Om Mani Padme Hum and so forth, but really, it won't really understand. It doesn't have the intelligence to understand it. So just studying and just teaching without, actually practicing meditation like this analytical meditation is therefore useless. To teach without meditating is to be like a parrot. So practice, therefore, this analytical meditation. So analytical meditation here is given utmost importance here. So just like the great masters like Jamgon Mipa Rinpoche and Jigme Lingpa, all of these masters who have put more effort into meditation rather than study, and you can see the wisdom, their insight, and their realization, which is something extraordinary.
记了下马追毛高郎是，他给的结果可能比娘子的没嘛，他可是我主要的，但这他妈讲的估计呢，你知道弄出去的这一手，这碰的平的，但我发现基本嘛一个多对吧，是多对吧有个绿的你他妈一个搞的。如果多买一笔出了做了多少的，这这个说这就容易了是吧？我这头结巴的，那对嘛是买，我我这头人的对嘛是买为啥的意思？加巴的些的，他加的那都在巴里头，他加巴的这种那时候有的变成加油是要阶段，加巴是啊，你加巴你就是在他就是人就是你什么的这上那这么着的这就这为什么？但我讲能够在西边去西边对。对，结果跟我们娘说来没嘛，送去。
As requested by Pema Gyaltsen, who provided the paper on which to write, I, Mifam, wrote down concisely whatever came to mind during a tea break. So this supplementary text was composed by Mifam Rinpoche at the request of one of his students, Pema Gyaltsen, who actually provided paper and to write the text, compose this text. I, Mifam, wrote down concisely whatever came to my mind during a tea break. So concisely, what it means by concisely is because in the main text, he speaks in detail about how to analyze, especially when it comes to aggregates being multiple, the multiplicity of the aggregates, and then how they are impermanent, and how to meditate on impermanence of the aggregates, and how to meditate on the suffering nature of aggregates, and then how to meditate on the selfless nature of the aggregates. So here in this supplementary text, the manual for meditation, he wrote down concisely, like in a short and concise way. Whatever came to mind during a tea break. So he composed in a short span of time between a tea break. So that this concludes Mangalam. So this concludes the supplementary text.
다 되네 사제 좀 동안 지다 검을 받고 지바 쉬스마치 다 니바 내가 제공으로만 대도 녀를 산이 다 줄지비 체 자비사지 니바지 노지 권리 롱진지 봉봉아 누지 근데 도마니도 메다도 동하니도 다음에 봐 왕그 콘도 추시비 체도 매바 용 노아던지 사소주 주제 녀몽 거는 루심 다 용도 공안도 노데 쓰나 대 부모가 보수 부모 저희 본도시 본도시 부모가 못하도 다들이 누지 그세도 데미지에서 좋아해 봐 누지 말이 바꾸 에미시 엔자데 도마니도 찍지 가서 그냥 녀몽 먹어가 니서 동안 도마니 봐도 메다바이 봐도 동카비 다니 봐도 다음에 봐이 봐 디드 저한테 롱 코너 추가 세니 오늘 고마 세비 체도 매서고니 대구는 미바테 먹어버치네 체도 매바 양 농아 동지 다 이대면으로 봐 사소를 들었는데 나도 내가 변제로 또 신제도 고마 또지 고노데 추적 런지 주바 덴바이 소마트 차고지 이거 지도면 봤는데 손을 통게 부모가 어때 뒤니에 되는 거죠 제가 토마토 잡아는 고안이 레사니 땡에서 뭐다 매바 녀서 말이 어때 아주 뒤니에 맞고 숨어 있어도 된 노아 통제 사소를 주셨다 이제면 도마이 받으면 다이 받으면 동하이 받 다음에 받 다즈면 저희 받 하고도 그러다 대답을 사소를 주셨을 때 공헌을 난 거기에도 이제면 주서 주셨으나 Nyambo that's one never top this one. The Nyambo to the point to you, my that one day. Nyambo that's a that Nyambo go none man. Nyammo go Nyammo Jiro Chevin, that Lamsan, then not on them. Then Nyammo Jima Jiva Kato. Nyambo that's in the Chir Simita, but one on your rich.
So in the main text, now we come to the second subsection of the main body, which talks about the measure of progress. So after we do the analytical meditation on these four aspects, they related to the multiplicity of aggregates, the impermanence, suffering nature, and devoid of self. When we do that with employing what we call the wheel of analytical meditation, which means continuously, with great effort, when we do this meditation continuously, without interruption, without letting in other superficial thoughts, the thoughts which strengthens our habit of considering or perceiving aggregates as something single, permanent, blissful, and with self. So when the wheel of analytical meditation is done, and we develop what we call familiarity. So familiarity is related to meditation. When you talk about meditation, what the meaning of meditation is being familiar with what we meditate. Eventually, through familiarity with this practice, you will naturally appreciate how everything included within the 5 skandhas and the conditioned is manifold, impermanent, painful, and devoid of self. Now, when we are familiar with this practice, when we do the wheel of analytical meditation, then there will be a time that will come that we don't really need to make any effort in terms of understanding the 5 skandhas and all the conditioned phenomena to be manifold, impermanent, painful, and devoid of self. Even without any deliberate effort, the whole of your experience will seem magical and insubstantial, and you will overcome the kleshas. So when the familiarity is developed, then we don't need deliberate effort, just like we did in the first place. Like when we begin with the meditation, there is a lot of deliberate effort. There's a lot of struggling there. Whereas when this is, when one gets familiarized with this particular meditation, then the meditation itself becomes what we call effortless, without any deliberate effort. Then our experience will seem magical and insubstantial. Now, which means that why we are wandering in samsara is because there is a very strong clinging to experiences, very strong clinging to the objects that we perceive, the aggregates, the conditioned phenomena, thinking that these aggregates are substantial, they are concrete, they are solid, they are inherently existent. And therefore, because of this strong clinging and fixation, the whole of the pain and suffering is born out of, comes out of that kind of clinging. Because of that clinging, then we suffer in samsara. In different kind of like circumstances, we go through that pain because of that clinging. Now, when this meditation is done, which actually establishes the reality that skandhas are manifold, the skandhas are impermanent, they are painful, and they're devoid of self. When this is being established and when this is being familiarized, without any effort, all our experiences will be free from clinging. And that will be like magical and insubstantial. You know, that substantiality is will not be there. That clinging to concreteness, the clinging to inherent existence of aggregates won't be there. And as a result of that, one will overcome the kleshas. Now, overcome the kleshas here particularly refers to the particular term, the Tibetan term called Gonnemba. Gonnemba is not like, it doesn't mean that you have given up the kleshas. It doesn't mean that you have removed the kleshas from the roots, but you manage to subside them. You manage to control them. You manage to overcome them, even though the seed is still there, the root is still the root is still there. This is actually the effect of meditation, analytical meditation. When there is effortless, when the meditation itself becomes effortless, then whatever experience that you have of the objects and the subjects, whatever it may be, will seem insubstantial. The solidity, the grasping to solidity and substantiality will be loosened. As a result of that, kleshas can be overcome. That means kleshas can be controlled, can be subsided.
다 냠물라도 자리나 내제 뇨메 이초 롱다든 튼준니 신의 땡이들이 다네 시베니 땡인데 파진단 도체 찍지고 자는 정말로 난 가서 강원의 시비 다 냠물고 고네 지금 고네 토니 용내도 거미잖네 냠물반 냠물 시베르반 도샤치도 대문가자 차로스와 단단 라진지로의 군홍비 사세주도 제다 냠모비 라빈스타니 다 간이 집에 다듬에 비지 부모가 뭐 도마 메타바도 동하동 다음에 봐 입에 쏠려 존이 컨스나 냠모바지 뇽으로 랍차르 페나 냠모바지 장소 랍르는 장소 주대죠 저 장소 제모데 데 냠모바지 랍르 트라스원데 장소 때메데 대체 뇽메바지 이 코노 이 세지 네바텔라 장소 주스코니 데 뇽메 이 초치 롱다든 튼준 네손데 롱다 도와시데 데 같이 뇽마 잔네용 다이데 냠모베 랍드 메 사코 땡이들 세지 네투이데 데이터는 롱도 투바촌니 신의 땡이들은 리투아이스 신의 땡이들 세세든 다 신의 지사 같이 뭘 시바지 가서는 나 신의 랍드렘을 하는 게 냠몬 넘반도와 시진의 토마신의 사자 대연의 지디 처범이랑 해비로 소요와 신의 랍드렘을 하는 세이도한 다티 신의 때 실대인들은 릭토버에서 그 주토에 있습니다. 당 한중도 커버 톰제기 줄라 저 차동의 제디 로라바테 주된 인사데 새로 도매 더다 봐도 녀세 두주도 냠으로 랍드리도 냠으로 영원도 주대 샤다진의 시비토니 내가 저 로모베 봐도 내가 뭐 전부도 샤다 전부도 저거 전부 감정의 소양 에 감정의 준비 좀 시부터 타야면 네 신이 찍지거든 사치와 니마도 니를 봐 쫙쇼도 자자 통말 내가 신이 때문에 요이나 때더니 동한 강글랑 지대의 주민사들 내가 요소요 때는데 시비대인의 리듬 초이스
When it is free from the waves of the afflictive emotions, the ocean of your mind is made serene and calm. This is conducive to gaining mental self-control, through which one reaches the samadhi of calm abiding. Now, after the wheel of analytical meditation is done, when the meditation itself becomes effortless, and when the kleshas are overcome, when the negative emotions are overcome, they are being subsided, they are being kind of controlled, then naturally the mind that we have will be naturally be serene and calm, and one will reach what we call the samadhi of calm abiding, which means shamatha. Now, what is important to know here is the mind in the desire realm. The mind and the mental state of the desire realm is very agitative, very distractive, very violent, very wild, agitated. Why? Because of the negative emotions. The negative emotions, the kleshas. The kleshas are very wild. And as a result of that, the kleshas, when the kleshas are wild and when they are gross, when they are high, when they are agitative, what happens is the mind is not serene. It is not calm. It is always disturbed. And therefore, like when we do the analytical meditation, and that analytical meditation, when it becomes effortless, and it helps what we call overcome the kleshas. So when we manage to overcome the kleshas, then the ocean of the mind, which is like an ocean, is kind of will be free from the waves of afflictive emotions. So the mind being the ocean, the waves, when the waves are violent, then the ocean itself it also becomes unstable. Like the waves of afflictive emotion, when they are violent, the sea itself, the ocean itself becomes unstable, right? In the same way, when the afflictive emotions actually disturbs our mind, then the mind becomes unstable. Whereas when this particular analytical meditation is done, where we are made to learn the true reality of the aggregates being multiple, they being impermanent, they being suffering in nature, they being devoid of self, we come to realize the reality. And when we know, when we come face to face with reality, then it settles what we call, it overcomes the kleshas, because the kleshas are deeply rooted in ignorance or delusion, which is none other than self-grasping. When the analytical meditation is done, what happens is it works on the self-grasping. It confronts the self-grasping, and it kind of like removes self-grasping, and which in turn, the effect of which is that in turn, the negative emotions that are being kind of like, that arise from self-grasping are settled, and they're being subsided, and they're being overcome, which actually enables our mind to be serene and calm. And this is conducive to gaining mental self-control, through which one reaches the samadhi of calm abiding. Now, calm abiding, shamatha, is so important because Shantideva pointed out that with the when calm abiding, shamatha is equipped with special insight. The special insight actually refers to the realization of selflessness of individual and phenomena. When these two are combined, which shamatha and vipassana are combined, then the kleshas are being kind of removed. Therefore, Shantideva points out that first you look out for shamatha, and then later on develop, special insight or vipassana, and which enables you to remove the kleshas, and especially the attachment. So therefore, the importance of shamatha here is pointed out, and even not only just people who don't practice, even those who claim to be like practitioners, even those who have studied for many years, and even those who have meditated for a long time, like meditating on the Mahamudra, meditating on Dzogchen, meditating on the great Madhyamika, and so forth. Even those who claim to be to be practitioners of these great teachings, they fail to achieve what we call realization, and that is because of the lack of what we call calm abiding, the lack of shamatha, because we don't have the single-pointed concentration of what we call shamatha. So therefore, shamatha is so important. Without this, realization is difficult to achieve.
that's it. Just saying, we didn't have one tongue. That's it. Saying, we was at the Congress edition. It's Egyptian, and those Egypt was young in the US. Then there was some treasure. Then the John would Sunday son. Then the Zomesa commission. They don't get the name of the Dunya May, Saturday Dunya Trap of the Ranji question or Nadine. But now the Egypt side, the Kani Shebe, that Pumanga, Tomato Bataba, the Duhan, Dami by Jin, Nova Shem, Sunday, Sanshivan Nibis Egypt. This later was Radua. Without no jealous Swadoni, she lived top Golasova. Kasi Momoji, the Chiva Mobuji, Tikali Kaima with them. That no idea, Jenny. Sensitive about thing that the root to do. That did trouble enough. Tiba Sunjan, Tonong, Sunday, never those sensitive thing in the group. They must give Derby San Jela, Sami Lato thing in the Jetta San Mays, Jumaban driven Jumarua. Or that the end of the said Guboji said them. Tiba Sunjan, Tonong was the longest. Sunday tomorrow, sensitive over. She needed it. There didn't have Hanon, so I want to what the Dametova last one, Tono Ishi, the job. There was a contact in name. London, Lavanton. That the Guban was John, the kind of Gubaship car, the Kazirova. The Guban, commit say. Candin Tibasum, near to Tibaron, so the Tiba, the Tomogan. Gonzano, late Tomoba. Tombo, you belong in those late Tomoba, Toman. That's all on Jolandas of Tomadon, they tangle. They tend it, German jealous one. The Jabba Jew there. Jono, Teni Tono to the Tonos of Sunday, on the Shimata was it, said it was Mena, Tono taps on me, but the she wins.
If you can then look into the very identity of the mind in one pointed concentration, that is the extraordinary insight of Vipassana, it is here that one finds the initial entry point that is common to all the three vehicles. Now, the single-pointed concentration is mentioned here by Mipham Rinpoche. And here, single-pointed concentration refers to what is the single-pointed concentration. Then here it refers to the Dösen Tsechikpa, which means the single-pointed concentration of the desire realm. And that comes through the meditation. Without meditating, then one won't achieve the single-pointed concentration, because the desire realm, the mind in the desire realm is so agitative, so disturbing, so violent and so wild, and as a result of which the single-pointed concentration is difficult. However, through the practice of meditation, one develops what we call, even within the desire realm, what we call the one-pointed concentration of the desire realm. Now, once one develops this, then further, through the removal or through overcoming the kleshas of the desire realm, one achieves what we call a single-pointed concentration of the form realm and the formless realm further. And these are all the single-pointed, what you call, all the different types of single-pointed concentration. Now, this single-pointed concentration, especially of the desire realm, is what we call the support, the mental support of what we call the special insight of the path of seeing. Now we have path, like five paths within the three yanas, beginning from path of accumulation, path of joining, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of non-learning. Whether it's in the Shravak, the path of the Shravakas, whether it's the path of the Pratyeka Buddhas, or whether it's the path of the Bodhisattvas. There are five paths. And all the three, the path of seeing of all the three yanas just mentioned, share this common thing, and that is that the path of seeing, which actually is the realization into the ultimate reality, should be supported by a single-pointed concentration. And that is what we call the single-pointed concentration, at least the single-pointed concentration of the desire realm. So therefore, it's very important that the one develops this single-pointed concentration. Otherwise, realization is not possible. One particular aspect of this text, quality of this text, is that in the other Mahayana commentaries like Uttanamje, which is distinguishing the extremes, distinguishing the extremes and the middle path, composed by Maitreya or Asanga, there, like what is mentioned is there are 9 types of what you call 9 ways or 9 methods of developing single-pointed concentration, which is quite complicated. But here in this text, like when you do this analytical meditation, when you make effort in this wheel of analytical meditation, it helps you gain what we call single-pointed concentration, which is quite easy to follow and easy to practice. So therefore, if you can then look into the very identity of the mind in one-pointed concentration, that is extraordinary insight of vipassana, and that is the wisdom that sees the reality. It is here that one finds the initial entry point that is common to all the 3 vehicles. So therefore, like the single-pointed concentration combined with insight, extraordinary insight of vipassana, is what we call the entry point of all the 3 vehicles. 3 vehicles refers to the vehicles of Shravakas, the path of Shravakas or the Shravakiyana, Pratyeka Buddhayana, and Bodhisattvayana.
That is the suggestion. That Goba Tangur. Goban Conte Tejo Jumandri, Chug Duni Majibi, Chuda maybe Tony La Tade so tiny charger. Another charger, Tenjin Janjuma, Chuga Yuba Maino. There's Tony Madu, Chuga Yuba Maino, Tawas in the Swan Nojim. Pumongaji Chutoji, Tenjin Drabanji watch, Jusin Tenjin Judo, Juman Dravas, Juman Dravate, Juman Kenji, David Shimbalas about Tenin Hard, Nimitana, Chiba Pume Tadu Lombo, Madi Lasaba, Mendaban, not so one tongue ready. Could make Shebito in Twana Matuva Chigim, Tanjing with Tomariwa. At the memory, Peter Noji, Tanya don't know and the Tomji Kazugon, very sure Noji Chigim. Lo Shinchelo Combe Toji, then Tom Devaji, Jumatawi wasn't Tona, Tenjin Jamanua, that thing torn to cause Judith Chuan, Jumelo Juan Maverick. The Tenjin Jamanua, Juan Javi. Then Nelu Mama Ship Sena, Sugar Domani Majibi is and you Giamever. Giamano Gavamever, Gavamever, Jimmy, Chigan, the no naming Meva, that Tomani in Dutton, the other Chudameva, Tomanis. That is no Pajik and the Ship because we can shape because Chudame to Kozak Damani, that so Shigur, Rubino Taji on Shigur. Chudame to Kozak Damani, what there. Yoga Mahorumachi, Mizukan, such a channel. Chudo Konza said, Konza Mizusiva, the true Mizusiva. They dame go, even Chibakan Mesuma. Zonji Chujin, Konza, maybe it's not Kozar Dame. Chu maybe it's not Chu Dames. That can Lala Chicken, Chu Dame, they should Chamois, Kozar Dame, they should Ravines and Charashi, Chiba said, they all Chiba Mesuma. And then the Chu Dame. That only Kozak Dame, Chen Taja, Kaza, Pumanga, Tomato, Metapa, the Dumato, Dame was it. So Kozak Dame to go in one. Then it Sembi, Pumonga is Sonji to be Shiba Kaji Chame, those one to Shame Nion, and the Dame by maybe Chu Dame Chardua. That Tomani. Chick Tade, Nimi last one, Tai, Jion, Tai, Jiel, Last was Jundu Sony Travel last was that we want to share about Jim. To what was about what him, Gandhi, Kazapumonga, Chip Sena, that tomato Medabadon, don't have the dime by Chip Sena, Lila Bisharadua, the Rivishiva Chimuba, Tanya Toanya thought they go to twice.
Now we come to the third section, which is the significance of the practice. And all illusory phenomena which arise interdependently have never arisen since the very dawn of time. And so in emptiness, the lack of phenomenal identity, they are beyond extremes such as sameness or difference. All illusory phenomena. So illusory, what it means by illusory? All the phenomena, whether it is the compounded phenomena or uncompounded phenomena, whatever is there, the five aggregates and so forth, all these are illusory in nature. So illusory, it has the element, it has the quality of being illusory. And just as like illusion, how illusion is created. Like, for example, a magician can create illusion, isn't it? The magician relying on like pieces of wood, pieces of stone, pebbles, and so forth. When the magician says a mantra and then, creates that illusion. Out of these stones, the pebbles, and the pieces of wood, the magician can create animals, horses, elephants, lion, people, even men, women. Even like a magician can create like army, out of the magic. So in the same way, all phenomena that we perceive, they are like illusion because they are interdependent. Just as the magician can create illusion based on the mantra, based on the pieces of wood and pebbles and so forth. When all these come together, illusion is created. In the same way, all phenomena, whether it is conditioned or unconditioned, when causes and condition come together and they arise, so they are interdependent. Therefore, like Nagarjuna points out that there is no phenomenon which is not interdependent. Therefore, there is no phenomenon which is not empty. So now here we talk about extension of the understanding of the emptiness or selflessness. Initially, when we are trying to understand the emptiness of what we call the emptiness or the selflessness of the individual, which we hold on so strongly, and then how that is being established is through investigating upon the aggregates, whether the person or the individual really exists in the aggregates or not. So when we do that investigation, then we find out that the self, the individual, the I that we kind of like, that we hold on to so strongly, so dearly, does not exist the way we think it to exist, right? So that is the basic understanding of emptiness, especially selflessness of an individual. Now, when we extend that understanding to all phenomena, whether it is aggregates, whether the aggregates to the minutest particle, like for example, the body, even to the minutest particle, they do not have inherent existence. They lack inherent existence, and they arise interdependently. They do not have independent identity as such. So that's what we call the selflessness of all phenomena. So therefore, phenomena which arise interdependently have never arisen since the very dawn of time. So this is like contradictory. It seems contradictory to us that they arise interdependently and they have never arisen. So when we say arise interdependently, that means they arise through causes and condition, relying upon factors, other factors. And that is what we call arise interdependently. When we say they have never arisen, means it doesn't have its own independent identity to kind of give rise to arise. So that's why have never arisen since the very dawn of time. And so in emptiness, the lack of phenomenal identity, they are beyond extremes such as sameness or difference. So when we analyze whether things are same or different, then we don't find that the independent identity of being same or different. So here it is important to again understand from the Madhyamika perspective the twofold selflessness. The twofold selflessness refers to selflessness of individual and selflessness of phenomena. Now, what is the difference between these two? So Mifan Rinpoche points out very kind of like simply that when we analyze whether the self or the individual exists or not, exists or do not exist. Now we keep the self or the I or the person as an object, and then we analyze, investigate, and try to find whether that self independently exists or not. And when we come to know that the self do not exist independently, by trying to find where the self is, trying to find in the aggregates, and we don't find that self. And that leads to what you call understanding of selflessness of individual. Now, when we shift the focus, the object of investigation, Now we are not investigating whether the person exists or not. Now we are investigating other phenomena other than the individual. Like, for example, the aggregates like form, for example, form aggregate. When we analyze form aggregate and try to see whether the form itself exists or not, and then we come to conclusion that form also do not exist independently. They arise interdependently. So, yes.
That's it. Teaching Lamja Toja is Tiba Chibilo Gomba Noja, Toja Lana Mebada. That is Denis Suju, Doni is. I didn't show the Chuji, device with Nimbo on days. The need to not see in Ta, many young Chambos. That is. Show the such come device with Nimbo, Sanjay Tonja, the Journey, 100 year danger. Show the Chuji, can't call on Tamikan Dembi. 대신 이번 때는 신대면 또 줄라서 봤다 따도 내가 집에 이번 선에 땅 선지 통제 주 내가 집에 쳐봤 때문에 나 대신 이번 대리스 대로소요 말했어 다들 가서 대대는 주사 때는 대니 손주고 뭐 노동 손주고 대니 손주고 단다 녀만이 떠한테 대대 내가 지금 이번 대니 수진도 또나 시진 다 many young Chambos said, then you switch in the donor, the social on it, Jiba to that's a taking over John, Tona, which you need the Mangas or Tony, Ramajo, Mada Saduna, so what Tabasa, Ramajo, Yashi Driba, Pong Pong sending, Tadu, Toja Lanmeba. The Swan Nedu Jajumba, Timmy, Gonzal Dame, so change Ronnie Shinta Lu Sweden, Sanjay Tashima. Then the Sibitap on Shinta Rosuma. That I will Tiba Jimmy Gonzal. Siji Nigan Talam Maniba, Yandi Chamber, Manib Young in the Chamber Siadim. That Tadu Tiba Chamber to the land of Jutuais. That day, other Chachiba Mumboy Penan. 라지금 코로 타마다 종이세니 조장에는 시에도 수수 되는데 아주비 롤파고요 말 가르다 코로 타마시베데 산tom시바데 지잡시보도 컨소먼도 산tom시바도 도고동가시바라스만 선비 코로 타미금 도 줄라서 요래 대지못 때문에 대도 내가 라나메스 Gumangele Shiba Dawsede, Galays, Judy Santon, to Kai Santon, you were Shiba Sheni, the Kai Santon, Kandi Shiba Dawsede, and the Denis Sunju, Noto Sunju, the Maditana Paguisonta, 20 share mess, and get that Bajins and George Robson Rangan, though the Gumangele Sumanoji, then Konotavan, Trevijet Malaso, and they call them Sonja. That lemons I do, to understand all the Mandriva Chev, Kajaton, that is a good more that is something. Got the many young day, but the two twice, Kazner, Condelator, which I do. Pena, Tomato, Metabado, don't have the Dami by Jiba Tishiba, she had 10,000 liver tail drove to them. Then the Guachi Cadra. That is a later word. Condi Shibatado. Lord Menju, Conkijon, your later. Talava. Ramo Cheba Tomoguba, Guba Cheba Jubadim, and Rudbada, you the Guba Jubacarva, and Yamadun Rouge.
So, So just as mentioned before, that Mipham Rinpoche, when he explains the difference between the two levels or two types of selflessness, the way it is being established, selflessness is same, but the object of the investigation or object of the inquiry upon which the inquiry of selflessness is being done is different. Otherwise, there is no kind of difference in terms of the nature of being selfless. However, there are other traditions that accepts that in these, between these two levels of selflessness, there is the selflessness of individual is like a gross level of selflessness, whereas selflessness of phenomena is more subtle. So that kind of difference is also being made. However, Mipham Rinpoche does not accept this. He says that, it clearly states that except for the object of investigation, the quality of selflessness, being selfless, is same. So this absolute space of great indivisible equality is also known as the essence of the Sugatas. Once it is realized, one finds the great nirvana that abides in neither existence nor quiescence. Now, again, the level of ultimate understanding of ultimate reality becomes more expansive and more sophisticated. So we began with selflessness of individual. Then we expand it to selflessness of all phenomena. Now, not only just selflessness of all phenomena, we also, this actually understanding of selflessness leads to understanding of what we call the essence of the Sugatas, which is actually the Buddha nature, which actually is the main subject of the third turning of wheel of Dharma. And this talks about the absolute space of great indivisible equality. That means the equality of two truths, relative and the ultimate, and which is ultimately what we call the essence of the Sugatas. And in terms of understanding the Buddha nature, the teaching on Buddha nature, there are a huge difference in terms of understanding Buddha nature. Like in the Nyingma tradition and also in some of the Kagyu tradition, what happens is the Sugata nature, the Buddha nature, the teaching on Buddha nature that is being taught in the third turning of wheel of Dharma is considered to be the most definitive teaching Buddha has ever given amongst the three turning of wheel of Dharma. Whereas other traditions, like in the Sarma tradition, like Gelugpa and Sakyapa, they consider that Buddha nature actually is a provisional teaching and not the ultimate teaching. So here lies the main difference. And that also depends on in terms of the three turning of wheel of Dharma, which teaching, what are the teachings that are considered to be provisional, what are the teachings that are considered to be definitive teaching. And that recognition or that distinguishing differs in different traditions. Like in Nyingma tradition, consider the ultimate teachings, the teaching on Buddha nature to be the ultimate and definitive teaching. And therefore, like the 10 sutras that teaches Sugata Garbha or the Buddha nature in the third turning of wheel of Dharma are considered to be the ultimate definitive teaching, and which is actually supported by the one particular sutra, which is called Sandhi Nirmochan Sutra, in which Buddha himself proclaims that out of the three turning of wheel of Dharma, the third turning of wheel of Dharma is without any conflict, without any controversies, without any kind of like, and this is the ultimate teaching. So that's Buddha himself proclaimed that. And in terms of also the other tradition consider, like, in third turning of wheel of Dharma, to be the teaching that is being accepted by mind-only school, the Chittamatra school, which is not considered to be ultimate. Now here again, the how we defined the mind-only school, mind-only tradition. So from the Nyingma perspective, the mind-only school, when you talk about mind-only school, there are two interpretations. One is the mind-only school based on the sutras, and the second one is the mind-only school that is hardcore philosophical mind-only school. The hardcore philosophical mind-only school, they kind of are being refuted by Madhyamika, whereas mind-only school based on the sutras, which are considered to be the teachings of Asanga, are not are in harmony with Madhyamika. They don't contradict with Madhyamika. So there's a lot to say about these philosophical understanding differences, refutation, counter-refutation, and so forth. So which we won't kind of deal it here, because this is particular the practice-related text. So just to give you an idea that what teachings are considered to be provisional, what teachings are considered to be definitive, in terms of distinguishing, in terms of recognizing it, in terms of defining and categorizing the Buddha's teaching into two main teachings of provisional teaching and definitive teaching, differs like in different tradition. And this is a subject of importance, because that actually affects in terms of the practice also. So 1 second. So once it is realized, one finds the great nirvana that abides in neither existence nor quiescence. Now here it's important to know great nirvana, and it talks about neither existence nor quiescence. The great nirvana refers to the nirvana of the Mahayana, which is the ultimate or supreme enlightenment, which does not fall into the extreme of nirvana, which means remaining in peace, So a Mahayana practitioner does not yearn for remaining in peace, Just kind of abandoning samsara is not enough. It's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is the supreme enlightenment, the great nirvana, and it does not fall into the extremes of peace. Neither it nor it kind of fall into the extreme of samsara also. So that's what we call the great nirvana, which that abides neither in existence nor in quiescence. So how does then now one is what is important here is like to understand the progressive paths, the 5 paths. How does one embarks upon, and how does one reaches the path of non-learning in the 3 different vehicles? So initially, like in the path of accumulation and path of joining, what happens is the conceptual understanding and meditation, which is very much related to conceptual, in the realm of conceptuality, the understanding and real understanding of selflessness, whether it's selflessness of individual or selflessness of phenomena, and that is being developed in this first 2 parts. And then when the path of seeing is kind of reached, and that is what we call the direct perception of the ultimate reality. And when that is being meditated in the path of meditation, then the different levels of obscurations are being cleared. Now, if you try to understand the Mahayana 5 paths, the first 2 path of accumulation and path of joining, one, the bodhisattvas develop the conceptual understanding of selflessness of both phenomena and self, and then direct perception happens as part of seeing, and in the path of joining, path of meditation, the different levels of obscurations are being cleared, and finally achieving the path of non-learning, which is Buddhahood. And that is the great nirvana. Whereas the path of non-learning of Shravaka's path and Pratyeka Buddha's path, they fall into the extreme of what we call nirvana, and even though they have overcome samsara.
나 대니 초도 다도 대 누가 지시 용서 다 다니 준비 연대지 파를 신발 나나메 선주 다 대는데 대신이 보고 내니 선주고 다니 대모다 주기한테 마루도 된 손으로 주어서 초도 다과도 내가 누지 누마시 다시비 누마시 많이 봐 누지 누마시는 대비 누마시 전부 다음에 탄립 다과 전부 다니 전부 연대 있어 아니 전부 연대 된 손으로 주어야돼 강의 받더니 주기 연대 인산이 대신이 보고는 니마도 세제도 된 손으로 주어야되지 바로 신발 다 다시 말라는 뒤에 고놈에 봐. 근데 저 세인티브가 아니 봐. 제비. 뒤에 고놈에 봐. 또 잘라는 봐. 디. 라나메. 다 근데 저 세인티브 씨바치. 대니 라메에서 힘을 던질지 대신 이행이 론조이 신 이라 투. 대행원도 추기 조 대니 라미 명하게 태강 고조 조실로 일단 너 디버 정지 단 라미 디바데 조세 디바 치반 바바 나 라미 바텔 나 시지 노준이 마이오가 안이가 아디가데 라미에 손님부터 노주 요가서부터 전동 세지집이 있어야 돼 건다 컨디버시 niveau de 로소 개요 던 리지빈 내가 지금 인사 매매로다 내지 로 돈을 흐르지 로주 이시 대니 것도 줘봐들 두어 있어 다도 될 수가 있어 대행 것도 추근 근데 추 말부터 이거 돈을 흐르지 줘야 있어도 다 줘봐치 보세요 와 이제 줘 대니 수준 요소를 받으면 라미 명하게 태강 것을 조지로 우선 다데 다 도바지 내용도 가버려 라마다지 소사 먹고 좋아지 먹고 간다 가지고 가면 먹고 조바집에 태강 것을 주셨을 등도 시기로 될 로지에 고송 대리들 깔래 가버려서 가르쳐도 대니 태강 것을 조지 공사한테 예시 드바 컨섬지 사보 차스와지 라미 모트버데 테바 모트트바근 소인들도 쉐랍당 뭐바 차종 총대베 거기를 맞을 건조지 론 차지 라칼리카 그래서 근데 라마 도제 로벤 친이 데마 때니 라미 소마다 소사 드바죠 까시에 그거데 로니 로지 시지도 관심과 대중의 차도 시어를 맞으지 남이 로만 짜다지 강아 되지 가이 말해 르메지 남이 건사 소미 주지 치미 토니 차대 치마 주와 치미 무엇을 돼 남이 고트를 맞으지 로만 로도 로만 이 세세 탐지도 로만 캐치도 프로젝트 놓고 말 요새까지 로니도 시지 관심과 가서 되게 있나요 가서 테울다울라 모두 자도 너지 맞지 로 찾으면 그 중이라 어다 때도 대도지다 르마지도 소사 집어지면 가지고 오는지 롱통 통해送도 차라리 그것도 와 단돈 회지집이 있는 소사 집어도 라지 땅 도전점에서 코나리 답이니 뭐 시와져서 어다 소사 집어져 때 그거 소사 집어지면 또지 소사 집어지면 주선네 라미 명아 오트도 그러나 근데지 맞도 내가 보지 좋은 차도도 이러고 말해 가지던 차도도 있나요 사지 탐지 줄 거대버 싶어 유유 그런 거 주초를 때 저도 다다 저 마송 다다 것을 자도 권하고 저 요소를다 어다 내서 때 탐지 내가 12권이 Lami Mema, Sangochu, Lami Go. Take a go to the what you look to my shitting is.
This is supremely pure and blissful, the great unconditioned, totally permanent, the great self-identity. These are its transcendent and unsurpassable qualities. So this actually speaks about the main subject of the third turning of wheel of Dharma, which is the Buddha nature that is equally within all sentient beings, which is supremely pure and blissful, the great unconditioned, totally permanent, the great self-identity. These are its transcendent and unsurpassable qualities. So one can see how the understanding of the ultimate reality deepens. First, we try to understand the selflessness of individual through the investigation of aggregates to be multiple, to be impermanent, and to be suffering in nature and devoid of self. Now that understanding is extended to all phenomena, and particularly that understanding is deepened on the level of Buddha nature. And that Buddha nature, the main subject and main teaching of the third turning of wheel of Dharma, what defines Buddha nature is pure and blissful, great unconditioned, totally permanent, great self-identity. These are its transcendental and unsurpassable qualities. Now further, this understanding is further deepened into what we call the Tantras. This is the theme of the highest secret essence Tantras, the all-pervading space of ultimate co-emergent bliss. It is also referred to as naturally arising wisdom, a state in which all phenomena have total perfection. To introduce this directly through the master's pit instructions is the approach of the great perfection, or Dzogchen. Now, when the understanding of Buddha nature is deepened and in the secret mantra level, highest secret essence tantras, it is called the naturally arising wisdom. In this naturally arising wisdom, the state in which all phenomena have total perfection. And in order to introduce to this nature of one's own mind, that is being done through the pit instruction by one's master, the authentic teacher. And that is what we call the approach of the Dzogchen way, the Dzogchen way. Now here, there is something important to note, very crucial, that I've heard that there are certain lamas in the West certain lamas who in the West have proclaimed that, the Dzogchen, the reality, the ultimate reality, the naturally arising wisdom, in which all phenomena have total perfection, can be introduced by the master to the student, and without the need for the student to needing to accumulate merit and purify negativities. So without the need of purification of negativities and without the need of accumulation of merit, Dzogchen can be introduced. And that is from the past lineage perspective, how teaching that is being practiced and being passed down from generation to generation, from master to disciple. And this is not the way that is being kind of like, shown us, have been shown to us. And because just as mentioned before, the quote from Saraha, in his spiritual song, Doha, in which he mentions that the ultimate co-emergent primordial wisdom or naturally arising wisdom can manifest through two means. And that is what we call it. The first is accumulation of merit and the purification of negativities and the blessings of the master. without the coming of these 3 or 2 causes and condition, not everybody can kind of realize dzogchen. Not everybody can realize the nature of mind. Even if the teacher, very generously introduce to the nature of mind to any student, if the student is not up to the mark, doesn't have the intellect, doesn't have the required devotion, has not kind of like weakened or exhausted a certain level of negativity, certain level of obscuration, and if there's no accumulation of merit as such, then even if the teacher introduces to the nature of the mind to the student won't understand it, the student won't realize it. So therefore, for Dzogchen introduction to happen, successfully, to happen in a right way, of course, the realization of master also is important. At the same time, the student's qualification is also very important. Without the student having purified negativities, having accumulated merit, having full devotion, then even if the teacher introduces it, the student actually can't make sense of it. So therefore, it's absolutely wrong to say that for Dzogchen to introduce, you don't really need to accumulate merit. You don't really need to, purify negativities. This is absolutely wrong. And this is something it's important for every one of you to know, that introduction to Dzogchen is not a child's play. Not everybody get introduced. Even if everybody get introduced, everybody won't be able to really make sense of it. Because, why? Because the student, if the student is not ripe enough, the student being habituated by the samsaric things, the negativities, the delusion, the negative emotions, the confusion, when there is so much in the student and there's a lack of devotion, then even if the teacher introduces, the student really can't understand it, can't make sense of it. And therefore, like the meeting of the causes and condition for the introduction to happen is so important that that only few gifted in the sense, somebody, a student who is actually very much devoted to one's teacher, have full confidence in the teacher to be able to see the teacher as a Buddha, and not only that, having purified one's negativities and having accumulated a lot of merit, then only the real introduction happens, and then only realization dawns in the student's mind. Otherwise, it's not possible.
대시 teaching 노동 나 토모 노동 건로로 노동 되지 축배 복시바 소소 답이 론즈정 사가지 뭐이 대지 토모 존노 복시바시바 대마지다 주변노가 단지로 코로나 다 보고가 레고 찌든지 도없지 quality tambo danditi wo yin sani this so ta belong de chin ka chi mo de no se jo ka je tomo de tomo so so ta ba ta ben tu se de pombo de zo pombo ni zon de pombo go de toma do ma ta ba dun dong ha ba dong ta me ba je so ta be tu ni ba de ni ni mo bo je 세마씩 녀모좀 세마딘 수지마지 이제입니다. 도보르보 진정도 때니 내 이도베 제발 수지마지 이제셔다 가서 건 지바시 자이다 대하고 있지. 제 세마지 이도베 수지마지 이제시 지바시 주도 풍부 다 풍부세야 풍부가려도 풍부가데 Conda Benchi Demindujason, no matter the Tonchipo and division. The more Toma, Nishito was in his genies. Consumona Majatar, the cause of the work on a Koi Pasuk, la emerge in it, the chubby, consul the chubby laws, start to work. Danny and my yendo, Tibachim Gonzagin, Conishibim. Contact Dame Chu Dame Yonzo Tosun. That may be some of my better than a gun, New Shibi. Tony said them. That condivat Josua, Trubin Taji Jurulaswa. Umitati Zashara to Shiva Tadu. Tomani. Tit only then Ponja the Nibu, Seji Tibugani, Ponja Nibu, the Rachu Shibu. Need I returned to Koroji, mother of Toji. Only Kolim, Mabis, Ponja Seji Tibugani. Ponja the Drata, Nibu Zombotan is only only somebody group, nobody. Dam Mabas. Taji Chava Marble to the Java to Taji, because I knew Tatu days. Thank Java go to John.
Therefore, as a preliminary training for the Mahayana path of both Sutra and Mantra, breaking through the shell of confusion surrounding the condition, this path of precise investigation is excellent indeed. So before we directly get introduced into nature of mind or understanding Buddha nature, understanding selflessness of all phenomena, before we do that, as a preliminary training of both Mahayana path of Sutra and Mantra, in order to break the shell of confusion surrounding the condition, this particular precise investigation, the wheel of analytical meditation, is excellent. So one can't jump straight away into the nature of mind. Instead, like this kind of investigation is very much reliable and excellent in terms of breaking the confusion that we have, shell of confusion. First, through the power of fine analysis, one destroys the mark of rising afflictions. Then, through the confidence in the emptiness of aggregates, one lets go of desires and hopes based on the three realms. And eventually, by progressing in the stages, all conceptual notions are pacified completely within the state of emptiness. After the analysis, as mentioned here, one destroys the rising afflictive emotions. Then one gains confidence in the emptiness of aggregates, and which help us let go of desire and hopes based on the three realms of desire, form, and formless realm. And eventually, all the conceptual notions are perfectly pacified within the state of emptiness. And so all conceptual notions are pacified in the sense that, like just as mentioned in the root verses of the Middle Way by Nagarjuna, where the 4 or the 5 logical arguments of the Madhyamika is being employed, which destroys all the conceptual notion. And what happens through that is one destroys all the extremes of the 4 extremes of the 8 extremes of the conceptual notions. Not wishing for any antidotes or further relinquishing, one is freed entirely from attachment and clinging to extremes. With the purest compassion beyond attachment, one courses through existence without the slightest fear, like a bird soaring through absolute space, and attains the level of a supreme bodhisattva.
로다 차비 공차제 시바다보다 차과는 니지의 차비 명이다 아니 뭐 처음에서도 이 차관데 공자 집에 녀모비 차과 너셔지 뜨문으로 집에 단단 코아체 니소 저저 차과 되죠 차과 명이 니지 넘 차봐 니지 전부 누가 말도 동지 제가 니지 집에 나좀 차과 되다 난 차비 명이다 차비 주의가라 샤진도 주의가도 시 자신 파바 때 던지 파비사 톱 진짜라 때 도지 단데 야한 도마 니제 쳔비 제존저 사데 sonji sibalne ma sonji sonji do 주변으로 타입을 산지에 따라 주관제니 산지 던지 편바 주고 자주 주는 서만지 탐지에 자유만 공사 이제 가지 매바까지 요다고 말 수익하는 샤진도 좀 샤노가 저도 타도 봐 다도 용사라서 쇼라서 그거는 또 먹고 같이 그것도 된 넘지 sonji sibalne 마 son지도 지발래니 선좀 스바 코스 고원도 니바메바 에나 냐반 남의 니바도 자시 소스바 톰제다 뭐만 뺏은 니바도 가지로 집에 좋아지와 오다 자리세고 대답이 선지 또 좋았지만 천리 무매군 좋았지만 자시 수 공포대요 까메바 단 다른 집은 좋아이.
Now, once one is familiarized with the understanding and realization of emptiness, then one doesn't need actually, like in the initial stages, we need to see like what is to be abandoned, and then we apply the antidote, and then we kind of like we get freed from what is to be abandoned. Whereas once one achieves the level where the realization when the realization of emptiness dawns in us, then there is no wish for applying antidote, and there's no wish to abandon something. One is freed entirely from attachment and clinging to extremes, with the purest compassion beyond attachment. Now here, out of that realization, what arises is purest compassion. The purest compassion is without any bias, without any partiality. And that compassion is given the name of great attachment. So therefore, there's a difference, like why, normally attachment is considered to be the root cause of samsara. When one have realized emptiness, then what gives rise to from that realization is what arises from that realization is the purest compassion, which is what you call all embracing. Because it is all embracing, then it is given the name of great attachment. One courses through existence without slightest fear because of understanding of the emptiness of all phenomena, the selflessness of all phenomena. One becomes fearless, and one courses through existence without slightest fear, like a bird soaring through absolute space. So when a bird flies in the space, there is no fear of being obstructed by mountains or by precipice or by falling into precipice and so on and so forth. There's no fear as such. In the same way, a bodhisattva enters or takes birth voluntarily out of compassion, without any fear, even in the deepest of hell, in order to benefit beings. And that is what we call attaining the level of the supreme bodhisattva. And that is the result of the practice of the two main aspects of the path, qualities of the path, and that is wisdom and compassion.
Shrab long control Sanji no Jova, Chiba Sanji Carnation. The Babylon, the what in the Chua, the Maroson. She needed the Shranic Longi, 100 Sanji no Joan. Chiba Sanji 예전에 두바롱 소재 받고 좀 검사 탐지기 그건 중요한데 너무 빠지기도 하죠. 간에 체주 살아라 주지바 세유 산지 주바 남중업이 소소 따바 지다 가세 공투는 롱소는 요는 저거 봐 대다 고자 뒤줄은 너자 지동도 뭔가 잘라서 봐 자소 냥뭐 총조를 냥뭐 지좀 sabje nyong chima yendo teda san tseji nebi shine jwa de le la bushra yois jumse kare chana pena cheta me zom ser shendo don do ruwa yin chame san jo teji no so de sije da se yendo se de do ikone sutan ni rimba yendo se je da son yong yudo chiba na said 다고 자니 뭐 건드 건지做中啊人家那说切入건的做中啊动作啊必对人都차바 통제 잡에 처음에 선정等于的提拔前辈동항 그 때문에 제일 조르라서 본 준비 좀 찾아 점도 주고 점도我马上몰라서 다 집어다요 건은 유튜브에만 산대 유튜브에서 사면서 대신 나오지
Based on the texts of noble masters, I have here explained the important points of the paths of the three vehicles, which provide a thorough purification of mental activity as a preliminary to the paths of shamatha and vipassana. So based on the texts of noble masters like Nagarjuna's the precious garland and other texts, I have explained here the important points of the paths of the three vehicles. Three vehicles refers to the vehicle of the Shravakas, vehicle of the Pratyeka Buddhas, and vehicle of the Bodhisattvas, which provide a thorough purification of mental activity as a preliminary to the paths of shamatha and vipassana, which means that before the shamatha is being developed, before vipassana is developed, what is important is the purification of mental activity, and that is being shown here in this text, and which is a preliminary to the shamatha and vipassana path. The more familiar you become with this practice of thoroughly purifying activities of the mind, the more the afflictions will diminish, and the subtler the kleshas will become. So when we are familiarized with this particular practice, particular analytical meditation, it purifies the activities of the mind. And then the afflictions, the negative emotions will diminish, and the kleshas will become exhausted. They will become subtle. This will make it easier to practice shamatha, and just like gold that is treated in fire, so it becomes malleable and ready to craft. Mind will be refined once it is free from attachment. So this analytical meditation will enable to practice shamatha in an easy way. And giving the example of gold that is treated in fire, when the gold is cut, rubbed, and been then in fire, when it is being treated in fire, then it becomes malleable, and it can be, that gold can be used to make different kind of things, ready to craft. In the same way, when the mind is being kind of treated in this, or being trained with this particular meditation, it becomes refined. And once it's become refined, it is free from attachment, and it becomes what we call conducive to practice whatever great practice that we do, higher practice that we do, whether it is Mahamudra, Dzogchen, or the great Madhyamika.
지급이 요새 통제 초밥분이 지마시바비 공사 강요로만 세김 근데 세고 찍도 비연 그저다 도통제다 뉴리 통제 메다바고 사지도 동하고 최도의 동이 다음에 봐. 우리도 메타바고 싶어서 최 dom지고 다음에 봐. 시에나 나미 선노리 처음에 봐 봐봐. 도와주는 노리 송송.
Imagine if someone were to offer plentiful gifts to the three jewels for 1,000 godly years. It is said in the sutras that the merit of this generosity is surpassed by the merit of even a moment's reflection on impermanence, emptiness, and selflessness. So the comparison is being drawn here that on the one hand, if you were to offer plentiful gifts to the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, for 1,000 godly years, and the merit that has been accumulated from this particular action, virtuous action, cannot compete, cannot surpass the merit of even a moment's reflection on impermanence, emptiness, selflessness, which means to say that a moment's reflection on impermanence, emptiness, and selflessness is far more meritorious than offering plentiful gifts to the three jewels for 1,000 godly years.
대지 처지 dom지고 유지도 메다가 사지도 되고 추도 돈 다음에 양인데 봐 시와고 싶어. 지저나 추지고 제리지동 저바동 순환념에 있으면 있었나? 간데 제공 걸어가 봐. 데이터 레바 감니 감나 하면서 안 도대 시와 저차 모비 전에 티바지면 도대 시와 모비 전에 소지 두바지면 소지를 공바 너 두바지를 공부했나? 다 데이터 공사 때라 사모 도모지 자치반 살롱 좀 라스반 최근 것도 집이 시럽 쳐바지 제니 시럽 자치 시럽 원저 저저 돈이 대우 가식매 봐 니만 유튜브 이봐다 다도 그거 이거 데이터 셔 토바 왜 녀 조르스 마도 로토라서 받음 야 녀무 통제 너무 조토이.
This is because the teachings say that to recite the four seals of the Mahayana Dharma is equivalent to understanding the teachings in the 84,000 sections of the Dharma. So in the teachings, Buddha's teachings, it is mentioned that when you recite the four seals of the Mahayana Dharma, that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent, all emotions are painful, and all phenomena are empty and selfless, and nirvana is peace. When you recite the four seals of the Mahayana Dharma, it is equivalent to understanding. When you understand the four Mahayana, four seals, then it's equivalent to understanding the teaching mentioned in the 84,000 sections of the Dharma. If you meditate well on the points explained here, since they bring together key points of many thousands of sutras, you will easily gain the treasure of knowing perfectly the profound and the vast, and liberation will swiftly follow in its wake. So when you meditate well on the points explained here, the fourfold meditation, analytical meditation on multiplicity, impermanence, suffering, and selflessness, these bring together key points of the thousands of sutras. And by doing so, you will easily gain the treasure of knowing perfectly the wisdom that knows perfectly the vast and the profound aspects of Buddha's teaching, and liberation will swiftly follow in its wake. You will achieve liberation and will be free from confusion, ignorance, and wrong views.
제존이를 뭔데 니시 개비 니마이 쥐언지 사과 집안노 차라 쥐쥐두진 투 시베 공부를 해주지 대시베다 니메 따와니마 세니마 냐무니마 나스마 니마가 제데미가 가도 코비선지 통지 쥐언지 너자제 드문 잘라서 왔다 자존이 쥐언지 Slapa Ronju, Donding, Sidianom. That's about something. Saji David Chakwa Tomji the Java, Chuji Duciti, two Shiradi, Shivan Yang the Communio the Java Chuji is some day. Watch it. The name Zezoni Chayu, Merudawa, Chuaimba, Pedajubi, Seva Jojela, Mavan Joma Jibi, she was Mogalam.
By the virtue of this explanation, may all beings tormented by the troubles of this degenerate age meet this elixir-like teaching on non-attachment, and through its power reach a state of perfect peace. So this is the dedication of the concluding dedication prayer of after composing this text. May the virtue of this explanation enable all beings who are tormented by the troubles of this degenerate age, five degenerations of beings, degeneration of times, of negative emotions, of view, and lifespan. The five degeneration age meet this elixir-like teaching, ambrosia-like teaching on non-attachment, and may the power of this teaching enable all sentient beings to reach the state of perfect peace, and that is the ultimate peace, and that is the supreme enlightenment. And then this is followed by the colophon. This was written by Mipam Nambar Gelwa in the Ain He year 1891 on the 18th day of the 10th month. Mangalam.
That you change the give on the same to so Jivano do the Kajal Sanji Madu to the Dunga Juni Jade, Tarish Rujima Kumbo Riba, so and the David to watch me. Chini Tan Dikunda Univa, maybe Chedo, this is Chibi Tobacco, Sunodum. Because the unit is in Zimatani, Pache, Tomji, Nomatrova, Tan. Negaso Chunyosu never trying to go out to Junche. Chunusova eating Ruala to the woman so true.
So this concludes the teaching on the wheel of analytical meditation, and at the conclusion, it's advisable to dedicate the merit, whatever merit that we have accumulated in this process of listening and contemplating and meditating on these important teaching. May the merit that we have accumulated together enable the Buddha's teaching to remain in this world for a long time, and may it spread throughout the world far and wide. May the holders of these teachings, the great masters, the noble beings, live long, and may all their aspirations be fulfilled. And through the practice of the Dharma, may the world be free from warfare, famine, conflicts, epidemics, and all kinds of suffering that the world is going through. And may all sentient beings get the freedom to practice Dharma, and which will enable them to tread on the path to liberation and supreme enlightenment. And with these prayers in mind, let us do the dedication.
Shoju Daru Kodo Razu de Uru Bemora to Jishin, Sonje Temba Taji.
All so. Nangaso good in Tara get to Menda Dubachi in.
No, Yana.
That's all but Khenchen Rinpoche, the Bantele Shanop, Chutori Homa Samala, Hang Sayake, Turi Chemborite, Natsola Be to Sujun Potan, Trana Yinke, Satan Jachivake, 담바사무 빼야본 송된 두다 주소를 호만도 참에 잡시된 행 타반에 두지 체 휴야인 되니 에다가나 이 마옹발라다 또엽 나차데소 파 준체 소나 껑무서 양절 페브로큐는 소발렌잔더 야당 대가나 이게 되니 다치게 그치 샤베테야 단 제반 틀레드니 로아셈지 탐치게 주라 토베트니 레바탄도 쉬야인 다다라가 쳤나 멘다쿠송 투틴치다 오멘다 샤틴데 노야인 I want to say short my broken English. Thank you so much to Khenchen Rinpoche. He's so much to activity all the east and the west. There's so many centers, so many sangha and the desire, but he give to time he was before here on the so long 2 weekend to give to us. We are very, very happy and thank you so much and by heart. And then I wish to him and the long life, good health, and his to Dharma activity to all special things, benefit to all sentient beings. And today we are very lucky, very special, and to an independent. You know, today's all over the Mother Days. I heard this day and our this teachings, and this is so his and the love, compassion on or similar in the mother or mother sentient beings. I'm very, very happy. Thank you so much to you all organized in the technique and the translators and all with contact us and together enjoy and the Dharma brothers, sisters and special in these teachings. Thank you. And now I want to short mandala offer and thank you to him. Please, and my sister Tsering, same names, give to in the short mandala text. And after I tell you more my English and repair. Okay. Saye beje saye mendondram rara len ye nye de jemban sanje jena mende parvayem Donggo nam da yen de jewar yo Dosum yang za lam yen so nam lam Chenang a za zon de yen ye yen jum Dali lom ju na ze yung ye lam Lam en chong ge yang don zan de so Cham ga ra na manda Pun za men ga sa men ra sa ba ra Samaye Ahum. Okay, now we're going to his long life prayer. Son ye nian pan bem hang gam ba ve ren lo zhen mian dong hai yong ram jiam cer ne te dang san be nie lian ji gom zong xie ra be la ren ba yin Lê song tên chiến tình bóng kèm bên trả Đêm yên lập son nô rô điện dân bên chờ Chỉ dân yên trần đờ dân gà đôn hè Chiến gà ra trừ yên tình trừ sư sâm hềm gần đờ yo mê la sam za wa đinh nam yang mê lo chân bê yaran đa so đề ba tuyên điên phèn điên đề giang miên tra hiê trếp sơ nâm bê chương thô chôn Sam Rinpoche Mahaji Manam Jeje Jemba Nyamba Meba Yam Kone
Kostbares
Bodin
Bodhicitta
stehen,
stehen, möge es nicht vergehen, möge es weiter wachsen. May bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen. When it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase even higher and higher. So Drupal Rinpoche told already everything, but I summarize very short. So from the bottom of our hearts, we say, Kadrinche to Khenchen Pema Shrab Rinpoche, Kadrinche, Kadrinche, Kadrinche. For these precious and profound teachings, we would like to invite you again and again to teach us the Supreme Dharma. So although you have so many activities all over the world, please accept our request and visit us again very soon. Please turn uninterruptedly the wheel of Dharma for the benefit of all sentient beings. And we wish and pray for your very good health and very long life. So many thanks to Khenpola, Khenpo Sonam Tsewang, for your wonderful, precise and clear English translation. And please consider our request for the next teachings in Khenchen Rinpoche's schedule. Lots of thanks really to all the translators in the 7 other languages in these 2 weekends. And again, especially many thanks to Tsering from Singapore, who excellent took care of the Zoom and streaming into YouTube, because our internet is not so stable, so we rely on you. Thanks a lot. We hope to see you all very soon again in Tashidele.
Tujiche ane Pema and Rinpoche pe kuzo yapondo te de kuzo trutin de chapse yapo shusa shu yusare and the nyang taba ni tujiche mantut pe yapon naronang shiayin ni tujiche
ya da de ma jo cheru tsumala da me shugu ke yomare tsumwe ako de shimko dunga janso se le de da shrado da janani chabe tombe neotela da sheno che de kawre sheno che pendo ke yomare tönde ne so de ngazo de dunga ge niso ande jeso ni de yueba ima de shibi tone de lodo je de da karshi so da ron de juade megele pon gebe de sono to toina le de lwa me ba de la sonsa da rong le masa wale ne na sa yo ge drib dunga de me yo azo ge chu de da le chi chi wa de pon bola control Rinpoche no basung. Then metal you was Tony, Loja Jenny, say Lama Junzi, you were get to the later, Cassette to Jenny, Surichia, de Kuma, Chepajin Swan Sona, they change roads of charging roads, either to the judge of known. Then Rendishu yours.
Actually, whatever needs to be kind of said has already been said in the teaching, so I don't need to repeat again. But just to remind you again that right now we are going through a very difficult period throughout the world because of this pandemic that actually originated from China. And one thing that we need to keep in mind as practitioners is that of course, it is understandable that there is immense paranoia, immense fear because of this pandemic and because of the devastation and destruction it has brought about. However, as practitioners, we need to remind ourselves and keep in our mind that the moment we are born in samsara, we are subject to all kinds of suffering. And this is something that is already there. The causes and conditions of suffering has already been sown. And as a result of that, we are going through it. And therefore, we need to learn from this catastrophe that nothing arises without causes and condition. We are going through what we have sown before, and this is not something new. So what we need to learn from this is take a lesson from this particular pain and suffering that we are going through, that all of these do not arise without cause and condition. In order to rectify it, what we need to do is we put all our effort, all our mind, all our intention, motivation, all our heart into following the law of cause and effect, trying to engage in virtuous activities as much as possible, and trying to avoid negativities as much as possible, so that, because the law of cause and effect is infallible, because of engaging in merit and overcoming and abandoning the demerits or the non-meritorious actions, what we can expect in the future is happiness, not only just samsaric happiness, but also the ultimate happiness of nirvana, of supreme enlightenment. And that is entirely up to us. And as practitioners, we ought to be responsible for ourselves and for others, and to keep in mind of this and try to push ourselves into kind of engaging in virtuous actions as much as possible. Okay, thank you everybody. So we conclude here.
Thank you so much. See you again very soon.
See you again, everybody.
Obrigado. Spasiba.
Dankeschön.
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 Pardias.谢谢你.
Oh,
Come on.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Obrigada.
Obrigado. Gracias. Achi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pardias. Aita from Estonia. And Tak, Sweden. Okay, thank you so much. Today's
Thank you so much.
special day, all mothers. Mother Khenchen Banks, very happy, long life. Enjoy Mother Days. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you kind all translators, organize and with us. Enjoy. Very
Thank
happy.
you. Meditative.
Noche